And you're with Outsiders, Ross Cameron and Rowan Dean. And later on this evening, you don't want to miss, Paul Murray is going to be interviewing the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. But first, very, very sad news last night, as you will have seen earlier on Andrew Bolt's show. Ari Fuld, an Israeli, was murdered in cold blood by a young man, basically, as we're going to hear from a good friend of his who's come on the show this evening and is well known to Outsiders, to talk about it. The death of Ari Fuld. He was a friend of yours. Welcome to Outsiders. Well, welcome back. David Adler, how are you?
Thank you so much.
Not a great day to have you here, but thank you for coming into the studio.
It's a very sad day. We've lost one of the lions of Judah, one of the great upstanding individuals, great Israel advocate, wonderful person. And it's very sad when someone of that standing is
and
lost.
And Ari was a good friend of yours. You had him out. He was staying in your house last year, living in Sydney.
That's correct.
Staying with you. Just talk us through, basically, I'm sorry to go through the events, but talk us through the murder itself before we talk about Ari.
Well, there's not much known about the murder at this stage. We do know that a 17-year-old Palestinian terrorist with a knife came up behind Ari, we believe stabbed him 5 times from the back. And Ari then did an extraordinarily heroic thing. He got up, he chased his assailant and shot him, succeeded in disabling him, and then he collapsed again.
So we've just been looking at the footage there, David, from Israeli TV, where you see Ari chasing his attacker. He fires the gun, he wounds the attacker, and then sadly Ari himself dies shortly afterwards. The young man, the Palestinian, is arrested.
Correct.
And I believe is in hospital. But the truly horrendous well, even more horrendous than the actual murder is the fact that, of course, the young Palestinian man is being paid to do this and his family will be rewarded. Talk us through that, David.
Let me make one point about the final bit of that video. I do have a medical degree, and most people would realise that if you have an injury that is bleeding, either internally or externally, the thing to do is to be still and put pressure on the wound. That's basic first aid. In chasing the terrorist to disable him so that he can't attack other people, by that heroic act, it may well be, it is a possibility that Ari brought about his own death. His final heroic event was to disable the terrorist. But you're right, we do have to raise the question of why would a young man do this? And on this show, we have exposed the financial aspects of both reward and incitement of terrorism. Through the UNRWA schools,
These are the United Nations funded schools?
Correct.
What is UNRWA? Just remind us the acronym.
It's United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Difficult thing to pronounce, but that's what it does.
It's kind of Orwellian. It's named as a relief agency, and its principal activity seems to be the incitement to violence.
Well, significant parts of it have actually been infiltrated by Hamas, and recruitment into the Hamas military camps occurs in UNRWA schools quite openly. Hamas has representatives at a number of the schools. It's a terrible, terrible organisation. And as you know, the US has decided that it is beyond repair. And so they have defunded UNRWA.
And thanks to your work on this show and in The Spectator magazine, Fraser Anning and Pauline Hanson, who we just had on the show, actually raised this issue in Parliament. And Julie Bishop, we congratulated her on this show for doing so, diverted some $10 million away from the sort of spending UNRWA and Hamas spending. And we applauded that, but there's still another 30 million going there. But tell us exactly examples of how this teaching of murder to Palestinians takes place.
Well, we are plugged in, the Australian Jewish Association is plugged into some of the latest research and information that comes out of Israel. And just a few days ago, I got an update of some year 11 and 12 books that have just been issued, published 1st of September, and the report I have is dated the 9th of September. So a history lesson, for example, on the struggle against the Zionist entity includes the lesson that they fight not only within the land but outside, and they cited the Munich massacre, the massacre of the Israeli athletes at the Olympics, as an example of that struggle. That's what they're teaching the kids.
Pure terrorism.
A maths lesson, which is to teach probabilities, poses the example, just suppose a settler is shooting cars and the probability of him hitting a car is 0.7 and there are so many cars, you know, how many are actually going to be hit? These are the calculations for the kids to...
So they're brainwashing them all the way through. Now, I'd like to... it's sickening stuff, and sadly, Australia is still funding some of this in all likelihood.
We are. 20 million straight to UNRWA.
There you go. OK. So, Julie Bishop, well, you're not in the job now, but Maurice Payne, your job is unfinished. Get rid of that extra 20 million, please. Absolutely. But let's talk about Ari Fuld. He was a friend of yours. We've got some photos we'll put up as you're chatting. Tell us about the man and about his time in Australia.
OK. About the man, perhaps an indication of his status is that a number of dignitaries have visited the family home to express their condolences.
Since he was murdered last night?
Yes, within the last 24 hours. Included was the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Naftali Bennett, one of the leaders of the political party education minister. Bezalel Smotrich, a leading conservative politician in Israel, have actually gone to his home to express condolences. Right. The American ambassador to Israel, appointed by Donald Trump, David Friedman, has issued a statement praising the work of Ari Fuld, the World Jewish Congress.
So tell us about his work.
He's quite a remarkable person. He had outstanding services in the IDF.
Israel Defence Force, yep.
Correct. And then he has continued as a reservist. But he's supported his brothers in the field, and the way he's done that is he's been Associate Director of an organisation called Standing Together, which delivers to the front line, no matter what the danger is, supplies that they might be short of, gives them, you know, some luxury foods, some bits and pieces. I actually have brought a couple of gifts for outsiders that are the sort of things that he delivers. We have a cap and a T-shirt.
Let's have a look.
You want to have a look?
Okay.
Okay. This is a genuine IDF cap.
Yep. On
the back of it is the Standing Together logo.
Right.
So we have one of these, and you guys can fight over these or flip a coin. This is one of the IDF T-shirts, and placed on it is the Standing Together logo on the T-shirt. You can flip a coin as to who gets who, but gets which. But so you do that. But then he had a great talent for advocacy, and he would appear in the media. He had his regular radio program. He'd appear on television regularly, also debating anyone. There was a show in Israel called Frenemies, where Ari Fuld represented the conservative view, and they would roll up the most outrageous leftists they could find, and there are many of those around, as you know, and they would debate. I mean, he would tackle anyone. So he came to Australia in November. Very short notice, we found out, and we organised 4 events for him in Sydney and Melbourne, and he got an enormously positive response.
So you haven't told me yet, David. Explain to me his basic message. What was his message? His advocacy was for what?
This is a man of great principle. He understood his country, he understood his culture, and he expressed his love for both. So his message was that the land of Israel is the traditional homeland of the Jewish people, without question. the entire land of Israel, both in terms of ancient evidence and modern evidence and law. He would cover all those fields.
So what was his solution, very briefly? Was he in favour of a two-state solution?
Absolutely
Clearly not. So what was he in favour? We've only got a minute left, so if you can talk us through his point of view, and is this what got him killed?
That's being speculated that he was actually selected. We don't know yet. But his point of view was that Israel, the only success is for Israel to have sovereignty over the entire land of Israel. Other people can certainly live there, but it has to be governed by Israel. That's the only possible peace.
Well, look, we have run out of time. Do we actually have a grab from Ari that can we show? Let's quickly have a look at the man himself in his own words.
Be good.
You know why I let you go on for so long? Because once again, you're inaccurate. So why are you lying again?
I'm not lying. That's what I've been told.
You said that I was part of it.
That's what I've been told.
You lied. Again,
I'm
why
sorry.
did you do that?
It's not a
First
fact.
you told me, no, it's not a fact.
You didn't participate. Okay. I'm sorry.
Apologize. Good. If you had the facts correctly, I probably would be on your side. There's not a person in Gush Etzion who's for any Jew going to an Arab house, kicking them out and taking it over.
Well, look, we believe on this show that the way to handle the most intense disagreements is by a fully open and, if necessary, intense debate.
Exactly.
And that was what Ari Fuld stood for. And in the end, perhaps that's what he died for. But you're also in that spirit of full and frank engagement of ideas, but in a non-violent way.
Absolutely.
Dr. David Adler, thanks so much for joining us.
Look, thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, and our sympathies for the loss of your friend.
Great friend.
We'll be taking a short break while we fight over the hat, and we'll be back in a tick.